What if I told you that somewhere in rural Pennsylvania, there's a mailbox that still receives letters postmarked from the year 3000? What if I told you that these letters contain warnings about events that haven't happened yet, written in handwriting that matches a girl who disappeared 27 years ago? Today, I'm going to tell you about Emma Hartwell, a 13-year-old girl who in 1997 began an innocent pen-pal correspondence that would spiral into one of the most disturbing unexplained phenomena ever documented. A correspondence that some say opened a door that should have remained forever closed. This is the story of the girl who wrote letters to the future and discovered that time itself might be far more fragile than we ever imagined. Emma Hartwell was not an ordinary child, though she appeared to be in every way that mattered. Born in 1984 in the small town of Millbrook, Pennsylvania, she was the daughter of Robert Hartwell, a postal worker, and Margaret Hartwell, a librarian at the local elementary school. Emma was quiet, studious, and possessed an unusual fascination with time. While other children her age were collecting Pokemon cards or watching cartoons, Emma spent hours in her mother's library reading about temporal physics, astronomy, and theories of time travel. She kept detailed journals about her daily life, but more peculiarly, she also kept what she called her future diary, where she would write letters to herself at various points in the future. The obsession began innocuously enough. In January of 1997, Emma's science teacher, Mrs. Henderson, assigned a project about communication across time. Students were asked to write a letter to someone living 100 years in the future. Most children wrote generic letters about their hobbies or asked simple questions about flying cars and robots. Emma's letter was different. It was 7 pages long, written in her precise, careful handwriting. In it, she detailed not just her life, but specific questions about temporal mechanics, the nature of consciousness across time, and whether the person reading her letter in 2097 could somehow write back. Here's where the story takes its first disturbing turn. Emma didn't mail her letter through the school project. Instead, she took it to her father's post office and attempted to mail it with a postmark reading January 15, 3000. When the postal clerk laughed and explained that wasn't how mail worked, Emma became inconsolable. According to her father's later testimony, Emma spent the next 3 weeks researching obscure postal regulations, time zones, and what she called chronological addressing systems. She filled notebook after notebook with calculations and diagrams that resembled complex mathematical formulas. Though she was only in 7th grade and had no formal training in advanced mathematics. On February 7, 1990, something changed. Emma's mother found her in the backyard at 6 in the morning, standing next to their mailbox with a letter in her hand. The envelope was addressed in Emma's handwriting, but the postmark read, February 7, 3000, and Margaret Hartwell assumed it was an elaborate art project. Emma had always been creative, and the postmark looked remarkably authentic. She didn't think much of it until 3 days later, when she found Emma at the mailbox again, this time holding a letter that was addressed to Emma, postmarked from the same impossible date. The return address simply read EH, Sector 7, New Millbrook. Margaret demanded to see the letter. Emma reluctantly handed it over. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a message written in handwriting that was unmistakably Emma's own, but somehow different, more mature, more desperate. The letter read, Emma, you must stop writing to us. The connection is becoming unstable. They've noticed the temporal bleeds in our timeline. We remember being you, but we also remember what comes after. Please burn this letter and never write to the future again. The mathematics you've been working on aren't mathematics at all. You're channeling something else. Something that's been waiting for a mind like yours. Stop before it's too late. Margaret Hartwell was deeply disturbed, but when she questioned Emma about the letter, the girl insisted she had no idea what it meant. Emma claimed she had never written any reply letter, and indeed, there was no evidence that she had. The letter had simply appeared in their mailbox overnight. Against her better judgment, Margaret allowed Emma to keep the letter, hoping it was an elaborate prank or perhaps a psychological phase that would pass. This was a decision she would regret for the rest of her life. Over the following weeks, more letters arrived, each one postmarked from progressively later dates in the future, each one signed E.H. or Emma H. or sometimes just the girl who used to be Emma. The handwriting gradually became more erratic, more urgent. The third letter, postmarked March 15, 3071, contained detailed descriptions of Emma's daily life that were accurate down to what she had eaten for breakfast that morning, but it also contained warnings about events that hadn't happened yet. The letter warned Emma not to go to the Millers Creek Bridge on March 22nd, claiming that the water remembers what you did, even though you haven't done it yet. Emma became obsessed with decoding these warnings. She started keeping detailed charts and timelines, trying to understand the temporal logic of the correspondence. Her grades began to slip. She stopped eating regular meals. Her parents found her at all hours of the night, standing by the mailbox, sometimes talking to herself in voices that didn't quite sound like her own. The letters kept coming. By April, they were arriving daily. The postmarks ranged from the year 3000 to over 10,000 years in the future. Some were written in English, others in symbols that Emma somehow seemed able to read. The content became increasingly disturbing. One letter, postmarked from the year 8412, contained a detailed diagram of the Hartwell family house with specific locations marked in red. The letter claimed these were sites of temporal weakness where Emma's past self could bleed through into your present. The locations corresponded exactly to places where Emma had been spending time: her bedroom window, the basement corner, where she did homework, and, most troublingly, the mailbox itself. Another letter contained what appeared to be obituaries. The first was for Emma Hartwell, dated March 22, 1997. The second was for Margaret Hartwell, dated the same day. The third was for Robert Hartwell, dated March 25th. The obituaries were written in the same handwriting as all the other letters. Margaret Hartwell finally decided to intervene. On March 20th, she removed all the letters from Emma's room and locked them in a safety deposit box at the local bank. She also scheduled an appointment with Dr. Patricia Morse, a child psychiatrist in the neighboring town. Emma's reaction was immediate and terrifying. She became catatonic for 18 hours, sitting by the mailbox and staring at it without blinking. When she finally spoke, her voice sounded different. Older, she said, "You can't stop what's already happened, Mrs. Hartwell. Time isn't a line, it's a web, and Emma found the center of it. We're all just echoes now." On March 21st, the day before the date mentioned in the warning letter, the Hartwell family made the decision to leave town. They packed their car and drove to Margaret's sister's house in Ohio, taking Emma with them by force when she refused to leave the mailbox. They never made it to Ohio. At approximately 2:15 in the morning on March 22, 1997, the Hartwell family car was found at the bottom of Millers Creek, exactly at the bridge mentioned in the warning letter. All three bodies were recovered. The official cause of death was drowning, though the accident reconstruction couldn't explain how the car had ended up in the water, as there were no skid marks or signs of impact on the bridge. More disturbing was the discovery in Emma's pocket. She was found clutching a letter, written in her own handwriting. Postmarked March 22, 3097, the letter contained a single sentence: "We tried to warn ourselves, but the warning was always part of what happened." The story should have ended there, but it didn't. The Hartwell house was sold to a family named the Rodriguezes in October of 19. Within 2 weeks of moving in, Mrs. Rodriguez reported that their mailbox was receiving letters addressed to Emma Hartwell, all postmarked from dates in the distant future. The family moved out after finding their 80-year-old daughter, Sophia, standing by the mailbox at 3 in the morning, holding a letter and speaking in a voice that sounded like an adult woman. The house has been sold 17 times since 1997. Each family has reported the same phenomenon. Letters continue to arrive for Emma Hartwell, postmarked from increasingly distant future dates. The handwriting in recent letters has begun to change, becoming more chaotic, more desperate. Some letters now appear to be written by different people entirely, though they all claim to be Emma Hartwell from various points in the future. Local postal workers have attempted to stop delivering mail to the address, but the letters continue to appear in the mailbox overnight. Security cameras have been installed multiple times, but they always malfunction when the letters arrive. The footage shows normal operation until exactly 3:17 in the morning, at which point the cameras display only static for exactly 4 minutes and 33 seconds. When the image returns, new letters are always present in the mailbox. Dr. Patricia Morse, the child psychiatrist who was supposed to treat Emma, has spent the last 27 years studying the case. She has collected over 4,000 letters that have arrived at the Millbrook address, each one postmarked from the future, each one claiming to be from Emma Hartwell. Through careful analysis of the handwriting, paper composition, and content, Dr. Morse has identified what appears to be correspondence from at least 37 different versions of Emma, each from a different timeline where events played out differently. Some letters describe worlds where Emma lived to adulthood. Others describe timelines where she died as a child but somehow continued writing letters from beyond death. The most disturbing letters describe timelines where Emma never existed at all, but something wearing her identity continues to generate correspondence across time. The most recent letter, which arrived just last month, was postmarked from the year 47,013. It contained only a single sentence: "The mailbox is not what you think it is. It never was." Physical analysis of the letters has revealed impossible properties. The paper is composed of materials that don't exist in our current timeline. The ink contains isotopes that won't be discovered for another several hundred years. Most disturbingly, carbon dating of the paper indicates it was manufactured in the future. Dates listed on the POSTM RKS. Dr. Morse's research has revealed that Emma Hartwell may not have been the first child to discover this temporal communication method. Historical records from the Millbrook area show similar reports dating back to 1867, when a young boy named Thomas Webb allegedly received letters from himself in the year 2000. Webb disappeared under mysterious circumstances, and his family's house later became the location where the Hartwell house was eventually built. Further investigation has revealed a pattern of disappearances in the Millbrook area that occur every 30 to 40 years, always involving children between the ages of 12 and 14, always associated with reports of impossible mail delivery. Local geological surveys have identified the area as sitting above an unusual magnetic anomaly that seems to fluctuate in regular temporal patterns. The current owner of the Hartwell house, Dr. James Chen, is a physicist who purchased the property specifically to study the phenomenon. He has documented the arrival of over 600 letters in the past 2 years. His analysis suggests that the letters are not simply appearing from the future, but are somehow creating their own causal loop. Each letter that arrives influences events in the present, which in turn influences the content of future letters, creating what he describes as a temporal feedback system. Dr. Chen's most disturbing discovery is that the letters have begun to arrive for people other than Emma Hartwell. Last month, he found a letter addressed to himself, postmarked from the year 5028. The letter contained detailed descriptions of his research methods and warned him to stop his investigation. It was signed James Chen, but the handwriting was identical to Emma Hartwell's. The mailbox itself has been studied extensively. X-ray analysis reveals that it contains mechanical components that don't correspond to any known technology. The metal composition includes elements not found in our periodic table. When the mailbox is moved or replaced, the letters stop arriving, but they resume within days once any mailbox is placed at the same coordinates. Most recently, Dr. Chen has identified what he believes to be the source of the phenomenon. Deep ground-penetrating radar has revealed a structure buried approximately 40 feet below the mailbox location. The structure appears to be artificial and is composed of the same unknown materials found in the letters. Carbon dating of soil samples around the structure suggests it has been there for over 2,000 years. yet it contains technological components that won't exist for several thousand more years. Dr. Chen believes that Emma Hartwell accidentally discovered a temporal communication device of unknown origin. Her letters somehow activated the device, creating a permanent connection between her timeline and multiple future timelines. But the connection may have done more than enable communication. It may have fragmented Emma's existence across time itself, creating multiple versions of her consciousness scattered throughout different temporal periods. The letters continue to arrive daily. The handwriting continues to evolve. And according to the most recent correspondence, Emma Hartwell, or the entity that was once Emma Hartwell, is no longer alone in the future timeline. The last letter Dr. Chen received contained a warning: "Tell them, we're coming home." 27 years after Emma Hartwell disappeared, her mailbox still receives letters from the future. Each one signed in her name. Each one postmarked from dates that haven't happened yet. Each one containing knowledge that shouldn't exist. The official explanation is that this is an elaborate hoax perpetuated by unknown individuals with access to advanced technology. But those who have studied the case most closely believe something far more disturbing is happening. They believe that Emma Hartwell found a way to communicate across time itself, and in doing so, she may have shattered the barriers that separate past, present, and future. The question that haunts everyone who has investigated this case is simple. If Emma can write letters to the past from the future, what else might be able to travel backward through time? And if the letters have been trying to warn us about something, what happens when we finally understand what that warning means? The mailbox is still there. The address is still active. And according to postal records, Emma Hartwell receives more mail than any other resident in Millbrook, Pennsylvania. She just hasn't been there to collect it for 27 years. Or perhaps she has been there all along, writing letters to a past she can no longer change, trying to warn a girl who no longer exists about a future that's already happened. The next time you check your mailbox, look carefully at the postmarks, because according to Emma Hartwell, time isn't as linear as we think it is. And if a 13-year-old girl in small-town Pennsylvania could accidentally break through the barriers of time itself, what's to stop the same thing from happening to anyone else? Sweet dreams.